So after yesterday's violent and chaotic scene in our nation's capital, many people are wondering, where exactly do we go from here?
Yes, amid calls of impeachment and reaction from around the world, it's not clear yet how big of an impact yesterday's events will have on our own politics going forward. Ben Gaskins is a political science professor at Lewis and Clark University. He joins us live this morning with a look ahead. Nice to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we haven't really talked about this morning. Some people resigning because of this or in light of this. Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff, was part of a special envoy to Ireland. He announced he was resigning this morning. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's not too surprising, I guess, to see some resignations. I know we saw a few low-level ones yesterday, but it seems to be that, this is really all that President Trump's advisors can really do at this point to express their dissatisfaction. I think that this was it was widely attributed to President Trump and in a bipartisan and fairly universal way. And so it's, again, globally, it's really shocking to see that this would happen and that some of his close advisors or even distant advisors would resign in the wake of this. But given that we have 2 weeks left, I think it's really just about holding on for dear life until the next inauguration.
Yeah, you talk about people, trying to distance themselves or express their displeasure. I'm curious, in your opinion, what your more standout moments from yesterday was. We saw some pretty strong reaction from several lawmakers, including Senators Mitt Romney, even Senator Lindsey Graham, really, I think, coming out strongly against President Trump for the first time in years for Senator Graham's case. So what do you think were some of the more important things said and done yesterday?
Well, I think that's exactly right. I knew that the Democrats would be universal in their condemnation of the challenge to the Electoral College results and would be
Oh, it looks like Ben is frozen.
universal,
Oh.
which sorry is
That's okay. Your connection dropped out. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can. Can you see me now?
We can now. Go ahead.
Okay. The fact that Mitt Romney called him out by name and basically called him a spoiled child who didn't get his way, and the fact that he also apparently yelled to his Senate colleagues that this is what you get from challenging democracy was just a really remarkable moment. And the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has really been loyal to the president throughout these 4 years and has really refrained from criticizing him overtly, the fact that he stood up and gave the first speech in the Senate when they considered Arizona's electoral votes and really said that it was his duty to uphold the Constitution and to reject the challenges to the electoral college challenges that some of his colleagues gave. I thought those were just two really important moments to see not just Democrats and not just Republicans that have been critical of the president over the past 4 years, but even some of his most staunch loyalists really stand up and say President Trump crossed the line and that we are not going to stand for challenging the results of the electoral college vote. I thought was a really remarkable thing, even though, especially in the House, a majority of Republicans were standing by the president and willing to reject the electors from those disputed states.
Yeah, and what message does that send? We did see them do that even after all of the chaos. Hawley, some of them were still kind of pushing that. What message does that send? Because we knew it wasn't going to go anywhere, and we saw what happened during the day when people felt, kind of emboldened by some of these Republican lawmakers who were refusing to accept the vote. I mean, we saw Hawley out there giving a fist to the protesters as a sign of, I guess, being with them.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest question going forward is to what degree does President Trump still hold sway in the Republican Party? And I think the Republican Party, now that especially that it's lost control of the Senate, is having to ask itself where it goes from here. And I think the fact that, again, despite all the things that happened yesterday, a majority of the members of the Republican Party in the House still voted to challenge the results of the Electoral College shows that there is a tremendous amount of loyalty to President Trump still. They still see him, I think, as the leader of the party, and are worried about crossing him and then going up for re-election in 2 years. So that says to me that Trump will still play a pretty predominant role going forward in the party, though that there will be a chunk of Republicans, especially I think in the Senate, that will want to turn the page and move away from Trump because they see him, I think rightfully so, as damaging to their electoral prospects in more purple states and in just non-red states. And so I think this is going to be a big question going forward. What role does the president play? And does the Republican Party seek to work with the Democrats, or do they see, or will they continue to see the Democrats as this existential threat that needs to be opposed at all costs?
Yeah, so we have the Republican Party over the next several years here really trying to figure out that identity. But meanwhile, we have President-elect Joe Biden, who will be sworn in 13 days. What is his challenge now as he moves into this role to unify the Democratic Party and to try and really capitalize on the momentum they have managed to gain, especially with these 2 new Senate seats in Georgia?
Absolutely. He has a huge number of challenges because the Democratic Party is really divided ideologically. And the fact that the Democrats won those 2 seats in Georgia, I think gives President-elect Biden a lot of breathing room. He can actually put forward his nominees for the courts, for his cabinet, and a number of policies that don't require Republican votes. But, it's the closest majority you can possibly get. It's a 50-50 Senate. And we saw yesterday with Biden's comments that he is still really sticking to the message that he ran on to get elected, of unity, of healing. And that rhetoric is fairly is one thing when President Trump is still in power, but when Biden actually has to put forward a governing agenda, one that is definitely going to divide Congress and potentially his own party, that's going to be a huge challenge going forward. And I know that he's set a fairly ambitious agenda, especially with COVID. And it remains to be seen how he's going to navigate those challenges.
Yeah, and we will see in just a couple weeks. Ben Gaskins, political science professor with Lewis and Clark University. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Well, Coin Career Connection here to help you find a job. Right